So last week is an exciting week in the cybersecurity community as Black Hat and Defcon were going on in Vegas. To recap the conferences and some of the things we learned there, I'm sitting with a few of our LMG resident experts, Ben Cast and Dan Featherman. I'm going to sort of step back a little bit and let you two geek out about Defcon and Black Hat as much as you'd like, but I think people that weren't able to attend to the conference or were there just would love to hear a little bit more of a technical insights, would love to just know what you thought was great and what you thought was novel and how it's going to help us do our jobs better.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
It's always fun to see the people at DEFCON.
Absolutely.
If you haven't been, that's almost worth it. So, anyone out there who wants to go to check it out, don't only think that it's about going to all the talks, it's also about seeing the scene. Additionally, we really just get a lot out of going to the talks, seeing what tools they're using for their attacks, learning new attack methodologies, validating the things that we do ourselves already, and really our main goal is to pick up new tricks that we can put into production right away.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll echo that. I think we came away over the last 3 years that we've done this with a handful of new tools to try out on client engagements. There's more to DEFCON than just going to the talks. There's the villages, there's the car hacking, the demos, the arsenals at Black Hat are always kind of cool. They're more small scale demos. The networking opportunities are completely invaluable. There are few instances where we can go and be with peers who we can talk shop with at a very technical nuts and bolts type level. And so those opportunities, I think we kind of need to grab by the throat and run with. So.
Absolutely. I mean, the conference has grown so much over its evolution. And DEFCON, this was the 25th DEFCON, so I mean, that is remarkable in and of itself. As far as, I think it's interesting too that you're able to get together, especially so much of this work is done remotely, and so it's a great opportunity to put names with faces and get to have a little bit of that human contact, which is probably hard to do on a regular business basis. So yeah, let's maybe hit on your favorite or most, the talk that you learned the most from.
I'll start.
Sure.
There was two that I got the most from. One was about client taxonomy on Wi-Fi networks, where ultimately the guy showed a method for identifying mobile clients connected to access points without having to be connected to the wireless access point, and in very great detail. So they had essentially found identifiers for all of the key mobile devices that gives you more information than a lot of the already existing tools out there provide from that kind of a perspective. So I thought that was interesting, and then there was another Wi-Fi oriented talk that I went to that Dan was at as well, where the hacker in that one, he was using tools that we regularly use, but also had some additional tools and methods that he was utilizing that did some cool things. An evil twin attack, where he had target clients connect to his evil twin. He then loaded a payload onto them through, I believe it was Empire, after doing a SMB relay attack on their client machines. Once that payload was on their client machines, disconnected them from the evil twin, then they went and connected up to their actual Wi-Fi network, and the payload reached back, and he had an interpreter session on their box from that internal perspective, and basically had a toehold into their network. And so just the kind of clever aspects as to how he did that attack, I thought was interesting and valuable in and of itself, and I wouldn't be surprised if we pretty quickly start implementing similar attacks on our wireless engagements.
Absolutely. One thing that was kind of cool to think about through that attack specifically was that you're attacking a corporate entity or a trusted workstation on a corporate environment that doesn't necessarily have to be physically on the corporate network. This is an attack that you could do at a coffee shop or at someone's house and implant, or seed a client device with a piece of malware that once they then get back onto that sensitive network segment will call back to you and gain you access to that. secured environment.
That is something I think people forget, is that, accessing the business through just the business is not the only way to do that. So
Absolutely.
you mentioned something about a car hack. What was that about?
Yeah, so there was an interesting one that I watched where they had rebuilt a wrecked car from the in-vehicle entertainment system. And they were able to watch calls out to the internet from that device to a non-existent domain or an unregistered domain. They were able to then register that domain, take control of it, and listen to the traffic coming back into them, and effectively reverse engineer the communication protocol between the client, between that car and its command and control server. Through that, in a fairly long-winded fashion, they were able to actually get an over-the-air exploit and gain remote access to that car, which is a little petrifying, and it's an older system, but still something that is totally feasible. And I think at the root of it, they were able to find a cellular chipset in that car that was running an old iPhone, cellular antenna.
Okay.
Not an iPhone 3G, the actual original iPhone.
Oh, from 2007?
Yeah, exactly, circa 10 years ago. Yeah, that one was interesting.
Also on the voting machine hacking,
Yes.
when I was in that Wi-Fi taxonomy talk, the dude who hacked the one machine, I'm forgetting the vendor name, but did it in like 35 minutes or whatever, he was sitting 2 rows behind me, and I was eavesdropping on the conversation they had. And then I did a little additional reading. One thing I didn't see publicized as much is the condition of those boxes that they had weren't hardened, and I would assume, and this is an assumption, I would hope, that the government agencies in each state that are putting together the actual voting locations where people come to would have hardening steps for that equipment that would go beyond what is just involved with that stuff getting dropped off by the vendor. Not to say that none of those things may have happened, but I know that on that one that got a lot of publicity, that it was hacked in like 35 or 40 minutes, in what I read, didn't get the impression that any aftermarket hardening had occurred to that thing,
Right.
and it was probably a very vulnerable example of a voting machine.
I think that attack specifically emphasized the importance of physical security around computing systems as well. I know with that one it had exposed USB ports that they were able to get code to execute, which makes me think of recent visits to doctors' offices and dentist offices and that kind of thing, where you're sitting in the exam room unattended and there's physical
right
access
there.
to a device.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So obviously, Black Hat is about, and DEFCON are about training, about sharpening skills, learning new skills, and you mentioned the networking, but it is Vegas. So I mean, why do you think Vegas is like a good place to be going and doing these things? I mean, are the parties worth it? Is that a good way for the networking to happen? And I don't know, are parties part of the way you were able to let loose and make this all less scary probably at the end?
Well, I only went to one party. It was the Salt Lake City 801 Labs hacker group party at Caesar's Palace. It was fun to go there. It was a little hot.
Sure.
It was fun to watch their battle between blow-up dinosaurs that they had going.
Oh, very nice.
They were mixing very stiff drinks, and there's free beer, so that's always a good combination.
Absolutely.
And legitimately, the people I talked to, they all were having some affiliation with the hacker group,
Sure.
and they all were, in one way or the other, in the InfoSec game. So from that perspective, I think it's valuable to go to those if you can get in and get a good invite.
Register early.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that topic, kudos to FireEye, Rapid7, Cylance, Threat Connect, went to all those parties. And I think that gives, outside of the conference, an opportunity in kind of an easier way to network with some of those peers where, attending hallway con where you're just passing everybody in the hallway is not an ideal place to do that, but as you're sitting there waiting in line to get a drink, that
No, absolutely. I mean, I had a quick conversation with the gentleman at the House of Blues about machine learning and TensorFlow and all of these things, and it's like that was not something we were going to talk about on the conference floor. So I think those parties are excellent.
Yeah.
So do you think it's important to go to both Black Hat and DEFCON, or what do you?
I think it depends on your job function and
Sure.
where you want to go, where you want to take that information. As a penetration tester and a security consultant, I found value in both of the conferences. They both kind of cater to a slightly different audience. You know, Black Hat tends to be a little bit more corporate. But on that same note, we get to see a lot of the vendors that, you know, we hear about, that we see implemented on client networks that we may not know the nuts and bolts. And we can sit down with one of their representatives and
Sure.
do a demo and see how everything works under the hood.
You really can't underestimate the value of that.
No, it's insightful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, gentlemen, is there anything else, last thoughts that you feel? I mean, was it a successful DEF CON and Black Hat experience for both of you, or is there anything you're planning on doing for next year, having learned any lessons this year?
Yeah, for the, you know, we had some air travel, I had some air travel problems,
right.
so barring that, it was very successful.
Mhm.
I always get a lot out of the talks. I enjoy not only the technical talks, but also the more philosophical talks.
Sure.
Some of which I missed, unfortunately. So next year, I definitely want to be able to go back and get to more days.
Sure.
But I wouldn't underestimate the non-technical talks.
I agree. I sat through one on privacy, specifically on digital rights management and Digital Millennium Copyright Act. That was fascinating. You know, privacy is of the utmost importance, and it is slipping away as we let that happen. But that one, being a totally non-technical talk, was pretty eye-opening. I always come back from Black Hat and DEFCON with a list of tools and research ideas, things I want to look at. But yeah, it's absolutely a success and worth the marathon that
Right,
is
absolutely,
Black Hat and
DEFCON.
DEFCON.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much for sitting down with me. If you have any questions, you can always email us at questions@lmgsecurity.com. We have several blog posts that also recap Black Hat and DEF CON, so feel free to check those out on our website.